It was a crisp autumn morning when my wife, Emily, and I finally closed on our dream home in Willow Creek Estates, a quiet suburban neighborhood nestled along the edge of a sparkling lake in upstate New York. We'd spent years saving up, scrimping on vacations and date nights, dreaming of a place where our two kids, Mia and Jack, could run free without the chaos of city life. The house itself was modest, a two-story colonial with a wraparound porch, fresh white paint, and a backyard that sloped gently down to the water's edge. What sold us, though, was the lake access. The realtor had assured us that the property line extended right into the water, giving us a private slice of paradise. "It's deeded that way," she said with a wink. "No sharing with the neighbors unless you want to." We imagined lazy summer barbecues, fishing with the kids at dawn, and quiet evenings watching the sun dip below the horizon. Little did we know that this idyllic setup would soon turn into a battleground with the neighborhood's self-appointed guardian. A woman we'd come to know all too well as HOA Karen. From the moment we moved in, the signs were there. Willow Creek had a homeowners association, one of those outfits that started with good intentions, keeping lawns mowed, streets clean, and property values high, but had devolved into a petty fiefdom. Our welcome packet was a thick binder of rules. No visible trash cans, approved paint colors only, and a laundry list of fines for everything from overgrown hedges to holiday decorations left up too long. Emily and I laughed about it at first. "As long as we follow the basics, we'll be fine," I said, tossing the binder onto the kitchen counter. But on moving day, as the truck backed into our driveway, a silver SUV pulled up and out stepped Karen. She was in her mid-50s, with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, yoga pants that screamed, "I'm in charge," and a clipboard clutched like a weapon. "Hello there," she called out, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "I'm Karen Wilkins, president of the Willow Creek HOA. Just wanted to make sure you're aware of the guidelines for unloading. No blocking the street, and please keep the noise down." I introduced myself as Alex, shook her hand, and assured her we'd be quick. She nodded, but her gaze lingered on our boxes, as if mentally cataloging potential violations. Over the next few weeks, she became a fixture. A note on our door about the unauthorized bird feeder in the backyard. Apparently, it attracted nuisance wildlife. An email reminding us that our mailbox needed to match the community's aesthetic standards. Emily rolled her eyes. "She's just doing her job," she said, but I could see the annoyance creeping in. The kids, meanwhile, were thrilled with the lake. Mia, at 8, loved skipping stones, and Jack, 6, would splash around in the shallows, pretending to be a pirate. We'd invite friends over on weekends. Nothing rowdy, just families grilling burgers and letting the kids play. The lake felt like our own little secret, a buffer from the world's stresses. But trouble brewed when spring rolled around. The HOA sent out a newsletter announcing Community Lake Days, where residents could use the shared access points for picnics and boating. Our property was at the end of the cul-de-sac, with a small dock we'd inherited from the previous owners. It wasn't fancy, just wooden planks extending a few feet into the water, but it was ours. Or so we thought. One Saturday, we hosted a small gathering for Jack's birthday. About a dozen guests, my brother and his family, a few neighbors we'd befriended, and some work friends. The kids were out on the dock, fishing poles in hand, laughing as they reeled in tiny sunfish. Emily had set up a table with cake and snacks on the lawn. It was picture perfect until Karen showed up, marching down the path from the street with her phone in hand, recording everything. "Excuse me," she barked, her voice cutting through the chatter like a knife. "This area is for residents only. You can't have non-residents using the lake facilities without prior approval." I turned from the grill, burger flipper in hand, confused. "Karen, hi. These are our guests, and this is our property. The dock and the water here are private." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "Private? Don't be ridiculous, Alex. The lake is community property. The HOA manages all access to prevent overuse and liability issues. I've had complaints about noise and unauthorized boating." Complaints? We'd barely made a peep. My brother Tom overheard and chuckled. "Lady, we're just fishing. No boats involved." But Karen wasn't having it. She demanded IDs from everyone, claiming she needed to verify residency. The kids froze, wide-eyed, as she loomed over them. "Off the dock now," she ordered. "This isn't a public park." Emily stepped in, her voice calm but firm. "Karen, please. It's our son's birthday. Let's not ruin it." But Karen doubled down, citing some obscure rule about guest limits on common areas. I felt my blood boil. The audacity of her barging into our yard, treating us like trespassers on our own land. Guests started packing up awkwardly, murmuring apologies. Jack burst into tears when his best friend had to leave early. That night, as we tucked the kids in, Mia asked, "Dad, why was that lady so mean?" "Is the lake not ours?" I hugged her tight, promising we'd figure it out. But inside I was fuming. This wasn't just about a party. It was about control, about Karen wielding her HOA power like a club to bully anyone who didn't bow down. The next day I dove into research. I pulled out the property deed, the survey maps from closing. Sure enough, our lot included a 50-foot waterfront strip, deeded privately since the neighborhood was developed in the 1980s. The HOA's jurisdiction stopped at the high water mark for shared areas, but ours was grandfathered in as private. I emailed the county records office for confirmation, and they sent back scans of old plats showing our boundary clearly extending into the lake. Emily and I talked late into the night. "We can't let this slide," she said. "If we do, she'll keep coming back," I agreed. But revenge, not yet. First, we tried diplomacy. I scheduled a meeting with the HOA board, bringing my documents. Karen presided, of course, with a smug grin. "Alex, the rules are clear. The lake is for all residents, and guests need permits." I laid out the maps. "Actually, our section is private. Here's the proof." The other board members shifted uncomfortably, but Karen dismissed it. "Those are outdated. The HOA has easement rights." She fined us $200 for unauthorized gathering anyway. That fine was the tipping point. It wasn't the money, it was the principle. We'd worked so hard for this home, sacrificing family time with my long hours at the engineering firm, Emily juggling her teaching job and the kids. The lake was supposed to be our sanctuary, a place to make memories after my dad's passing last year. He'd loved fishing, and I'd promised to teach the kids like he taught me. Karen was stealing that joy. Over the following months, her harassment escalated. Notes about our unsightly dock. It needed paint, apparently. Complaints if we had more than 2 cars in the driveway. She even called the town code enforcement on us for a potential wetland violation, which turned out to be bogus. Friends stopped coming over, afraid of the drama. The emotional toll hit hard, Emily stressed, snapping at little things. The kids asking why we couldn't play by the water anymore. I lost sleep, replaying scenarios in my head. One evening, after a particularly nasty email from Karen threatening more fines if we didn't remove the dock, I snapped. "Enough," I told Emily. "We're fighting back." We hired a real estate lawyer, a sharp woman named Lisa who specialized in property disputes. She reviewed everything and grinned. "You've got a slam dunk. Not only is it private, but the HOA's overstepping could open them to liability." We started gathering evidence, photos of Karen trespassing in our yard, records of her emails, witness statements from neighbors who'd seen her antics. Turns out we weren't alone. A quiet couple down the street confided she'd fined them for planting non-native flowers. Another family had moved out after she harassed them over a basketball hoop. Whispers of discontent rippled through Willow Creek. As summer approached, we planned our counterstrike. We'd host a big 4th of July party, invite the whole neighborhood, make it impossible for her to ignore. But this time we'd be ready. Lisa helped us file a formal complaint with the State Attorney General's office for HOA misconduct, citing abuse of power. We also requested a public records review of the HOA's finances. Rumors swirled that Karen had been dipping into funds for personal expenses. Tension built as invites went out. Karen predictably sent a cease and desist letter claiming the event violated noise ordinances. But we pressed on, securing permits from the town to cover our bases. The day of the party arrived hot and humid, the lake shimmering under a blue sky. Guests trickled in, over 50 people, including board members we'd swayed with private chats. Music played softly, grills sizzled, kids splashed at the water's edge. I kept an eye out for Karen, heart pounding. Sure enough, she arrived in her SUV, clipboard in tow, face twisted in fury. "This is outrageous," she shouted, pushing through the crowd. "Non-residents off the property now. Alex, you're in violation." I stepped forward, calm as could be, holding up my phone with the deed displayed. "Karen, this is my private land." "The lake here?" "Mine. Guests are welcome." She froze, mouth agape as murmurs spread. But that was just the beginning. Karen's face went from red to ghostly white as I held up my phone, the deed glowing on the screen under the July sun. The crowd hushed, eyes darting between us. I could feel the weight of the moment. Years of frustration, the sleepless nights, the way her petty rules had chipped away at our family's joy. This wasn't just about a party anymore. It was about taking back what was ours. "You can't just claim private ownership," Karen sputtered, clutching her clipboard like a lifeline. "The HOA has jurisdiction over all lake access." I smiled, keeping my voice steady. "Not here, Karen. This land's been private since 1983. Check the county records." A few neighbors pulled out their phones, no doubt searching for the documents themselves. One of the board members, a quiet guy named Steve who'd always seemed uneasy around Karen, stepped closer, squinting at my screen. "He's right," he muttered, loud enough for others to hear. Karen's eyes narrowed, but she didn't back down. "We'll see about that," she hissed before storming off, her SUV peeling out with a screech. The party continued, but the air buzzed with a new energy. Neighbors whispered about Karen's overreach, some sharing their own stories of her tyranny. Mrs. Delgado from 2 streets over told us how Karen had fined her $500 for a non-compliant fence height. Forcing her to dip into savings meant for her daughter's college fund. Another neighbor, Raj, admitted he'd stopped hosting barbecues after Karen reported his excessive smoke to the fire department. It was clear we weren't just fighting for ourselves anymore. Willow Creek was ready to push back. That night, as fireflies danced over the lake and the kids roasted marshmallows, Emily and I sat on the porch, plotting our next move. "We've got her on the ropes," Emily said, her eyes glinting with determination. "But she's not going to stop. We need to hit harder." The next morning I called Lisa, our lawyer, and filled her in. She was thrilled. "Karen's reaction is gold," she said. "She's doubling down, which means she's rattled. Let's keep the pressure on." Lisa suggested we escalate by filing a formal injunction to stop the HOA from enforcing rules on our private land. She also dug deeper into the HOA's financial records, which we'd requested through the Public Records Act. "If there's anything shady, we'll find it," she promised. Meanwhile, I started rallying the neighbors. I created a private group chat, carefully excluding anyone too close to Karen, and invited those who'd spoken out at the party. To my surprise, over 20 households joined within hours. People shared screenshots of Karen's emails, photos of her snooping in yards, even audio from a heated HOA meeting where she'd berated a single mom for missing a dues payment. The evidence was piling up, and so was the anger. But Karen wasn't idle. Over the next week, she launched a counteroffensive. Notices appeared in mailboxes, claiming the HOA was reviewing property boundaries to clarify lake access rights. She started showing up at our dock with a tape measure, taking photos and muttering about encroachments. Once, I caught her on our security camera, stepping over the property line to inspect our grill. "She's building a case," Lisa warned. "She'll try to bury you in legal fees or scare you into compliance." Emily and I weren't rich. Our savings were tied up in the house, and every extra dollar went to the kids or the mortgage. The thought of a drawn-out legal fight made my stomach churn. But giving in wasn't an option. Jack had stopped asking to play by the lake, and Mia's drawings, once full of bright water scenes, now showed dark clouds and frowning faces. Karen was stealing more than our property rights. She was stealing our kids' childhood. I spent late nights poring over HOA bylaws and state laws, my engineering brain treating it like a puzzle. One clause caught my eye. The HOA board could be recalled if 60% of residents petitioned for a vote. Karen had been president for years, re-elected unopposed because no one dared challenge her. But the group chat was proof we had numbers. I floated the idea to the group, and the response was electric. "Let's do it," Raj texted. "She's been running this place like her personal kingdom." We drafted a petition, keeping it simple, a call for a special election to replace the board, citing mismanagement and abuse of power. Lisa reviewed it, ensuring it was airtight. We needed 48 signatures out of 80 households. By the end of the week, we had 52. The petition was just one prong of our plan. Lisa filed the injunction, citing our deed and the HOA's overreach. She also uncovered something juicy in the financial records. Thousands of dollars in miscellaneous expenses tied to Karen's name, including reimbursements for community event supplies that no one recalled seeing. "This could be fraud," Lisa said. "If we can prove it, she's done." We decided to hold off on that bombshell until the right moment. Meanwhile, we planned another gathering, a neighborhood unity picnic on our lawn, open to all residents. The goal was twofold: show Karen we weren't backing down and gather more support for the petition. We printed flyers emphasizing the event was on private property and got town permits to avoid any noise complaints. The group chat buzzed with ideas: potluck dishes, kids' games, even a small stage for local musicians. It felt like we were building a community, not just a rebellion. Karen predictably tried to sabotage it. She sent an HOA email blast, warning that unauthorized events could lead to fines and urging residents to avoid disruptive gatherings. She even called the town, claiming our picnic needed a special event license we didn't have. But we'd done our homework, the permits were in order, and the town clerk shut her down. The day before the picnic, she posted signs around the neighborhood: "Respect our community rules," with her name signed in bold. It was desperate, and it backfired. Neighbors who'd been on the fence joined our group chat, fed up with her bullying. One woman, a retiree named Clara, sent me a photo of Karen's sign with a red X drawn over it. "I'm bringing potato salad," she texted. Let's take her down. The picnic was a triumph. Over 60 people showed up, spilling across our lawn and down to the dock. Kids raced around with water balloons, adults swapped stories, and a guitarist played soft folk tunes. Steve, the board member, pulled me aside. "I'm with you," he whispered. "Karen's been skimming dues for years. I've got receipts." He handed me a USB drive with scanned documents, checks signed by Karen for vague consulting fees. My heart raced. This was the ammunition we needed. As the sun set, I climbed onto a picnic table, megaphone in hand. "Thank you all for coming," I said, voice steady despite my nerves. "We're here to celebrate our community and to take it back." "Who's with me for a new board?" The cheers were deafening. Karen wasn't there, but I knew she'd hear about it. Word travels fast in Willow Creek. That night, Emily and I sat up late, the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket. We were so close, but the stakes felt higher than ever. If we misstepped, Karen could spin this as a personal vendetta, rallying her loyalists. We needed to play it smart, use the petition to force a vote, the injunction to protect our land, and the financial evidence to expose her. Lisa was already preparing a presentation for the special election, complete with slides of our deed and Karen's questionable expenses. But I couldn't shake the fear. What if we lost? What if Karen twisted the narrative, turned the neighborhood against us? The kids were asleep upstairs, their laughter from the picnic still echoing in my mind. This wasn't just about winning. It was about giving them a home where they felt safe, free, and happy. As I stared out at the dark lake, I knew the real fight was coming. And we'd be ready. The morning of the special election felt like the calm before a storm. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that makes your skin prickle. Emily and I had barely slept, running through our plan with Lisa over coffee at dawn. The HOA meeting was set for 7 p.m. in the community center, a squat brick building at the heart of Willow Creek. Our petition had forced the vote, and the agenda was simple: recall Karen and the current board, then elect new members. We'd nominated Steve, Clara, and Raj, neighbors who'd proven their commitment to fairness. Lisa had prepared a presentation, a surgical strike combining our private land deed, Karen's overreach, and the damning financial records from Steve's USB drive. But as I stood in our kitchen watching Mia and Jack eat cereal, doubt gnawed at me. Karen was slippery, a master at twisting words. If she swayed enough residents, we could lose everything: our momentum, our allies, even our right to the lake. The day dragged on. Neighbors texted updates. Karen was canvassing door to door, spinning tales of rebellious troublemakers, threatening property values. She'd even printed glossy flyers, claiming the HOA's lake management was for everyone's safety. It was infuriating, but Lisa urged us to stay calm. "Let her dig her own grave," she said. "Stick to facts and emotions. People will feel the truth." We spent the afternoon finalizing our pitch. Emily made posters with photos of our kids on the dock, captioned, "This is our home. Protect our rights." I rehearsed my speech, pacing the living room until Jack giggled. "Dad, you're gonna wear out the floor." His laugh eased the tension, reminding me why we were fighting. This wasn't just about beating Karen. It was about giving our kids a place to grow up free from her shadow. By 6:30, the community center was packed. Over 70 residents filled the folding chairs, a mix of familiar faces and Karen's loyalists, who sat in a tight cluster near the front. The air smelled of stale coffee and nervous sweat. Karen stood at the podium, her smile as polished as ever, but I caught the flicker of unease in her eyes. She opened with a speech about preserving community standards, painting us as selfish outsiders who wanted to privatize the lake. A few heads nodded and my stomach twisted. Then it was our turn. I stepped up, heart pounding, and started with a story. How my dad used to take me fishing. How I'd promised to pass that on to Mia and Jack. This lake, I said, pointing to a slide of our dock, is our family's heart. But Karen's tried to take it from us, claiming power she doesn't have. I showed the deed, the county plats, the injunction filing. Murmurs grew louder. Lisa took over, projecting the financial records. Gasps rippled through the room as she highlighted checks Karen had signed for consulting and event supplies. Thousands of dollars with no receipts. "This isn't just about my client's land," Lisa said, her voice sharp. "It's about trust. Your dues misused." Karen's face crumpled, but she leapt up, banging the podium. "These are lies." "I've dedicated years to this community." But Steve stood, calm and steady, holding up his own copies of the checks. "I've been on the board for 2 years, he said. "I've seen things I can't unsee. It's time for change." Clara and Raj shared their stories, fines that broke their budgets, harassment that drove neighbors away. The room was electric now, people shifting in their seats, whispering angrily. Karen tried to regain control, citing bylaws and threatening legal action, but the tide had turned. A woman in the back, someone I'd never met, stood and shouted, "You fined me for my kid's swing set." "Enough!" Others joined in, voices overlapping with years of pent-up frustration. The vote was called. One by one, residents marked their ballots. Emily squeezed my hand so hard my fingers went numb. When the results were read, 62 for recall, 12 against, the room erupted in cheers. Karen sat frozen, her clipboard abandoned on the table. New board members were elected, Steve, Clara, and Raj, with overwhelming support. As the meeting ended, neighbors swarmed us, thanking us for standing up. Karen slipped out the back, her SUV gone before we left the building. The weeks that followed were a blur of victory and healing. The new board repealed Karen's petty fines, rewrote the lake access rules to honor private deeds, and launched an audit of HOA funds. Karen resigned as president, citing personal reasons, but whispers spread that she was moving out of Willow Creek. Our lawyer filed a civil suit for her trespassing and harassment, and though it was settled out of court for a modest sum, the real win was seeing her name vanish from the HOA letterhead. The lake became ours again. Mia and Jack were back on the dock by summer's end, fishing poles in hand, their laughter echoing across the water. Neighbors started hosting their own gatherings, unafraid of reprisals. The community felt alive, like it had shaken off a long fever, but the emotional weight lingered. I'd catch Emily staring out at the lake, her eyes distant, and I knew she was replaying the stress, the fear we'd lose what we'd fought for. One night, as we sat on the porch, she leaned against me. "Was it worth it?" she asked. I thought of the kids' smiles, the neighbors who now waved like old friends, the dock that was ours without question. "Yeah," I said. It was. We'd turned the tables not with vengeance, but with truth and community, and that felt like winning. As I look back, I realize this fight wasn't just about a lake or a dock. It was about standing up when someone tries to take what's yours. It was about showing our kids that you don't let bullies win, no matter how powerful they seem. What's your HOA horror story? Have you ever faced a Karen and fought back? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you triumphed.